Welcome to another sparkling edition of Plank of the Week. And once again, I'm delighted to say we've actually got real people in a real TV studio. We have to do a bit of social distancing, but that's not particularly unusual, particularly when I talk about Patrick Christys, who's here with us. I always like to stay as far away from him as possible. Esther Krakue's here for the first time as well. Political commentator, a woman that's been on talk radio plenty of times. Yep. We thought it was time for you to dip your toe in the water of discovering who Plank of the Week should be this week. And we've got plenty of contenders, it has to be said. Remember, people, by the way, if you haven't done it, you must subscribe to YouTube and you'll get not only all the Plank of the Week stuff that goes out, but everything else that we do here at Talk Radio. There's lots of it and there's going to be more of it coming down the pipe. Patrick, let's start with you. Who's your first nominee?
Jofra Archer, England quick bowler.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, England playing the West Indies now. We're back at it with the cricket, and that's great. But they had a very, very strict kind of social distancing regime that all of the teams had to do.
Yeah.
The West Indies, for example, spent 4 weeks holed up in a Manchester hotel, which I think sounds absolutely horrendous, doesn't it? But Jofra Archer decided to flout these rules by doing a 130-mile trip to see his dog in Hove. Didn't even see his girlfriend. He had to deny that he'd seen his girlfriend because that makes it better. It was only the dog. So now he's obviously out of action. He can't play. He should have been quarantining, but of course he can't call it quarantine unless it comes to the quarantine region of France.
Yes.
Otherwise it's just sparkling isolation.
Well, indeed, absolutely right. Yeah, I did hear that he was apologising, but I'm so sick now of reading stories and hearing stories about people apologising. I now don't actually care what they're apologising for, you know, and it wasn't until you just told me that was what it was that he did. But why is it when people take these trips, it's always 100, you know, it's never like 2 miles or, 3 miles. They brought the dog to him somewhere nearby. No, it has to be like 130 miles.
Yeah, Jofra Archer's infamous trip to Barnard Castle.
Well, everyone's been going there ever since Cummings did, you know. But it's crazy, isn't it? So he's now off the team.
So he's off, and he's had these coronavirus tests. He's negative, so all good there. Yeah. But yeah, he's fundamentally let his team down, hasn't he? Really, this is the whole point. You can't just go around doing things like that. But apparently, he didn't realise he'd done anything wrong. So it was like the day before the test match, and he's just chatting to people, and he's like, "Oh, I went off to see my dog." I'm like, hang on a minute, Joff.
Right. He said, what? How is the dog, by the way? Is the dog fine?
Looks very well.
Yes. Yeah, great. Okay.
Dog.
Why don't you take a picture of the dog? Well, FaceTime the dog. I mean, I didn't see my dog for 8 weeks, right? When I first was in lockdown, because my dog lives in Sussex. I mean, not on his own, but I mean, all my children also live with the dog. I used to FaceTime the dog.
Yeah.
And he knew it was me. He recognised my voice. He would look in with his big nose. I mean, it's fine. You don't need to Jofra, you see, because you haven't got a dog, you think that's ridiculous.
Yeah. Does it talk back?
No.
There's a bark
That'd be ridiculous. If I had a dog that talked, I wouldn't be sitting here, Esther, what's your first nomination?
Probably Keir Starmer.
Keir Starmer,
yeah,
one of the favourites. He's in it quite a lot.
Yeah, with the visor, sitting outdoors, and he's the epitome of everything that's wrong with this lockdown. Honestly, he just always takes it the next level. Like, I see him kneeling, and now I'm seeing him with a visor. I bet he showers with a complete.
Yeah, I mean, that's not something I really don't want to think about Keir Starmer in the shower. But he's not a man that sort of exudes personality, is he? I mean, can you imagine being stuck on a train with him, where you just sit there and he'd be kind of staring at you from the opposite side of the table, And he just never smiles. He doesn't seem like a guy that ever smiles. He seems very intense.
It's really hard to imagine him in sort of his own space, as an actual human being.
As an actual human being, yeah. I think it's the hair as well. There's something weird going on with that hair. And
the haircut.
And also that guy, Ashmore, the health secretary, he's got the same hairstyle. They've got the same parting.
But it's a little bit like North Korea-esque, where there's a pre-approved set of hairstyles. And it's like, if you want to be high up in the Labour leadership, you've got to have that look now.
I'm pretty sure it's illegal to not have that haircut. You
can't
have like an afro or something.
No, you can't. It's quite regimented. Yeah.
Also, for all his talk of highfalutin language about equality. And how he fights for the underdog, and he fights for women, and he fights for minorities.
For the BAME, whatever that is.
He didn't actually decide to step aside and let the other 2 women who were going for leadership actually battle it out to see if they could finally get a female leader. He just decided to take it anyway.
It's incredible. He took one for the team there.
He did. This is the picture. The picture Esther's talking about, which we'll probably see shortly. This is the picture of Keir Starmer sitting outside with a bunch of care workers around what was a pub picnic table, it looked like, sitting a good 2 metres apart, all of them wearing these ridiculous visors. I don't know, don't get it. My first one, I'm going to go royal again, Prince Andrew. Now, Prince Andrew, apparently it's come out just this week. Apparently he and his team thought the Emily Maitlis interview went quite well. And so, until they started to see the way it was being reported, they were all sort of clapping him. He came back after after they'd walked her out of Buckingham Palace, they raised a few glasses and started patting each other on the back. Great job, Your Royal Highness, well done. Nobody could quite believe that that's how thick this bloke is.
Yeah.
I mean, he really thought that was a good interview.
Yeah, he thought, that's
gone
cleared
well.
it all up.
Yeah.
That's cleared it all up now.
Yeah, there'll be no more questions after this.
I'm glad we put this one to bed.
Yeah, absolutely extraordinary. And also the fact that he then has caused so much angst to his own family that his own daughter has to get married literally in secret, right? He gets to, I think, walk her down the aisle. But then they release the official pictures, and he's been taken out of them all.
Yeah.
So,
tragic.
can you imagine?
Sounds like a Chinese propaganda.
Yeah. It's like, so now technically Prince Andrew has been airbrushed from history. I mean, you can imagine the Queen going, can you do that to all the other pictures of him and just take him out, the balcony shot,
Even the baby
Diana's
picture.
wedding, take him, just get rid of him, just airbrush him out.
Yeah.
I mean, what an embarrassment.
I just can't believe that it's still going. I can't believe it's still going, the story, but I can't really believe that he's still in the public eye. I mean, we were saying, weren't we, that basically the main issue at play here is not the whole Pizza Express at Woking stuff. It's not all of the toe-curling, excruciating things that he said. It's the fact that he just was friends with a notorious paedophile.
A charged, convicted
Like,
paedophile.
a convicted paedophile, and he
the
carried
thing.
on being friends with it.
Yeah.
Well, my favourite bit was how he took 4 days to go and explain to him how he couldn't see him anymore.
Yeah.
And then got pictured walking through Central Park with the known paedophile. I mean, one of the things you don't do is go out in public with the known paedophile.
Yeah.
I
What do
think
you even say over 4 days? Like, is it like a long letter? Is it
Yeah, do you think
an eternal hug?
Potentially. Potentially. I just find it quite, the whole thing very shocking. But it's the arrogance of the man that he thought that would be fine, that he could go and say what he said in public view, and that would be the end of the matter. I mean, what reality are you operating in?
Was a disaster.
It really
was
was.
a disaster.
But can
I
you
couldn't
imagine
watch
the
it.
wedding, though? And I'm sorry to go back to the wedding. And she married this guy, Princess Beatrice Eduardo Mapelli Mozzi, who sounds like the sort of guy that you'd be conned by, Yeah. Arrivederci, I've just taken all of your money and headed off back to Lake Como with it, I'm sorry, but, can you imagine the sort of the reception line, though? As you come and meet the family,
Could you imagine the Italian side on the other side
Yeah,
of the
Yeah, just
Something out of Goodfellas.
yeah, and they were going, I don't like looking at the dad, But anyway, so that's mine, Prince Andrew. So who's your number 2?
Right, my number 2 is the Director of Public Health England. This is a chap called Duncan Selby. Now, Public Health England, of course, got found out recently. It was a classic case of you had one job, and they managed to really botch it up. They were bracketing everyone who's ever had coronavirus, basically, as being impossible to recover from it. Therefore, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, but I tested positive for COVID 2 months ago, I'd be classed as having died from COVID, which is nuts, right? He's in a bit of hot water, but what I like about it
I'm surprised it's taken Matt Hancock this long to work it out, though.
Yeah, I am a bit as well. But the second sentence on his Wikipedia page literally says he does not claim a deep knowledge of public health. You're the what?
Brilliant. That's brilliant, isn't it?
Hiding in plain sight, isn't it?
You do wonder if Britain is the only country that runs like this. I mean, surely,
The World Health Organization is run by someone with no medical experience.
That's true, yeah. I mean, maybe they took their lead from them. But, wouldn't that be the first question at the interview? What's your knowledge of public health?
Yeah.
Because the job is to be head of Public Health England. I haven't got any.
I don't claim to.
Right. Excellent. In you go.
Yeah, exactly that. So he's actually on more money than the Prime Minister. Right. And indeed, at Public Health England, there are 5,000 staff, and 300 of them, more than 300 of them, are on 6-figure salaries. So it's quite a bloated
How many of them are there?
Really. Well, it's 5,000 staff at Public Health England, yeah.
But they're not, actually practising medicine, are they?
And
they're just
they're also
middle
not
managers.
Not counting very well, are they? That's the
No,
thing.
no.
Went to the Diana school and back.
Yeah. But
5,000 people, that's outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah, but the impact that their mistake there has conceivably had on our economy is, if we did think that this number of people were dying, worst death rate in Europe, this, that and the other, we continue with lockdown and the knock-on effects that has to the economy and people's mental health. Well, it was all, well, it wasn't all, but it was a lot of it was just botched figures. They come out and go, well, we might be 10% off. You've got no way of knowing now. You've got no way of knowing.
Yeah.
Also, the knock-on effect has been quite disastrous for the travel business, because one of the reasons why nobody wants Britain to go and tourists to go to their country is because our death rate is so high. Yeah. And you go, well, hang on a minute, if our death rate isn't that high, surely that's better for us, isn't it? Yeah. Why would they do that? Why would you go, well, did they think it was a competition or something? Yeah. Maybe we should win, Britain in Europe. We've won it again.
Europe's most deadly.
Europe's most deadly country. Great. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. So
No.
now, like, the Greeks have got, the Portuguese are very happy to let the Germans come and visit, the Norwegians, the Swedes, but not us. No thanks, because, you've got too many dead people.
Yeah.
It's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Shocking. Well, who's your second one?
The Court of Appeal.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. I mean, why do we have embassies if we have to fly back terrorists to British soil to, fight back for citizenship that they got?
Well, what I don't understand, there's two
Seized?
things I don't understand about this Jemima Begum thing, right? How does she get legal aid if she's
Yes.
not a
Who's
British
Who's paying
citizen?
for it?
Well, we are,
Oh,
presumably.
sweet mother of God.
So the lawyers are making money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think up to the tune of about 15,000. I know it doesn't sound like much, but still, it's our money.
Yeah.
But I don't understand how. I mean, I know that foreign terrorists in the past have probably got legal aid to try and get a reduced sentence or something like that. But it seems to me that it's not right. If you're a foreign criminal, why should we be paying for your legal assistance? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, where is the responsibility for the territory that you committed the crime on? Because technically she committed the crimes in Syria.
Yeah.
Syria is a legitimate
Right.
government.
Yeah.
Why can't she be tried there? Why couldn't she be a refugee there?
Well, this is probably a bit of a cue for the old legal system.
Well, I mean-
Because war crimes in Syria, there's about 3 million people in the lockup waiting to be
imagine?
done,
Oh my God.
including half the government. But, but you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
all this rubbish about, she might not be able to speak freely if she's in a refugee camp. Well, why not?
Yeah.
What's she worried about? She's already
Why
in a
can't you go
refugee
to an
camp.
embassy? Why can't you go to one of our embassies in the Middle East?
Yeah.
And I don't understand why she is our problem.
Yeah, I don't.
She is not our problem. She chose to give up her British citizenship. She chose to go and join a terrorist organization. At 15...
She also willingly took part in quite a lot of atrocities, I
Exactly.
think, as well.
At 15, you're not a child. People are saying we should let people vote at 16. At
Right.
15, you're not a child. At
Right.
15, I was singing the Yin Yang Twins in chemistry class.
Right.
I wasn't joining terrorist
Also,
organizations.
you knew that it was probably a pretty bad idea.
Yeah.
To go off and join a terrorist group of people who were
So
setting
I
fire to
don't
people
think
in cages.
she was groomed or whatever. I think she made a conscious decision. I mean, you can be tried for crimes in this country from the age of 10.
Yeah, that's right. Criminal responsibility.
You can be a mother from the age of like 13.
Yeah.
If you can physically be a mother from
Right.
the age of 13. Why should we treat a 15-year-old like a child who's now
Right.
20?
I know.
And is no longer our problem. Really, she's not. And I don't think we should.
Of course,
take
the Labour
responsibility
Party
for
have
that.
been pretty bad on this, haven't they? Because
Oh,
Lisa
yeah.
Nandy's been banging
Yeah.
on. She said it at the time. And I think last year, actually, Keir Starmer said
Yeah.
that we should be bringing her back to face trial in this country. Well, I'm sorry,
Why
I don't
should she
agree.
why should she be in a prison here?
Right. Also, her husband is Dutch, right?
Yeah.
Why doesn't she go to Holland?
Yeah. She can get Bangladeshi citizenship as well.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. I just, like you said, I don't understand why it's our responsibility, but I just find it like it's kind of massive act of self-national flagellation that we just invite some of these, on paper anyway, some of the most evil people in the world, people who are capable clearly of doing some incredibly awful things. Why we allow them back in? I just don't really understand it. Like you said, she's not our problem.
No.
Now, there are consequences in life. If I stepped out into the road and didn't look both ways and got hit by a car, that would be a mistake. In the same way, in a similar sense, of going to join a jihadi death cult somewhere in the Middle East because you've got to flee the horrors of Tower Hamlets. I mean, come off it.
Listen, I've been to Tower Hamlets. It's not that nice, but it's not that. it's not worth going to a war zone, to try and improve your lot. But yeah, really. Yeah. But I'm told there's about 400 odd of these former jihadis from ISIS who have already come back and who are now living in Britain.
Exactly.
I mean, they're not
No,
in
but
prison.
think of the precedent that sets. If we allow her to come back to the UK, first of all, we're not getting her out.
Right.
There's just no way. And secondly, that sets a precedent for people that go abroad to commit acts of treason and terror to come back and then claim their citizenship back, or just come back in general.
But also, we already have that law that if you go and join a terrorist organisation, you are stripped of your citizenship. It's as simple as that. It's unlike most of the laws in this country, it's actually very straightforward. And that's what she did. She's willingly admitted that that's what she did. There's footage of her supposedly, committing violent acts on people who are out there. Her husband, she quite willingly admits, killed people. She watched him do it. She found a severed head at one point in a bin or something.
Yeah.
And that was the kind of life she was living. She's going to find it pretty boring if she comes back to Tower Hamlets, to be
I
honest.
like the way that her lawyers went, she doesn't fear British justice. Well, I'm surprised, because jihadi justice looks absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
I wouldn't fear British justice either if I just lived through that.
No, exactly.
There are people that are making the argument that her losing her citizenship was political. What is political about stripping a terrorist of their citizenship?
Right.
Surely that is the epitome of national security threat.
Exactly. That's the other thing that nobody's mentioning here, that she is a threat to our national security.
Yeah.
And so is everybody else that's in a refugee camp. But they seem to think it's a great idea because we can watch them when they come back here. Oh, right, because that goes really well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've already got like 500 people under surveillance. And every now and again, one of them jumps up and stabs somebody.
Yeah.
Which brings me to my second one, which is Neil Basu, who is, of course, the He's the Muslim police officer who's a part of the Muslim Police Federation, and he also is in charge of sort of counter-terrorism at the Metropolitan Police, and quite often will give interesting interviews, like what he said that if he hadn't joined the police, he probably would have been on a Black Lives Matter march, and to which everybody went, "Oh, for God's sake," you know. Anyway, this week he comes out with an even better one. He's decided that we might need to do away with the term Islamic terrorist and jihadi, because it might be Islamophobic to call people that, and it kind of denigrates an entire community of people. And you're thinking, well, so you don't want to call Islamic terrorists Islamic terrorists. What do you want to call them? And you know what they want to call them? Faith-claimed terrorists.
Oh, no.
Which basically means that they're not doing it on behalf of Islam. They're just doing it because they're horrible, violent people. And the fact that they happen to be Islamic or Muslim is a complete side issue. You know, to which I would say, well, what about the guy that shouts Allahu Akbar shortly before he attacks everyone?
Yeah.
Surely that links him to Islamic terrorism. But it's this whole cancel culture thing where they think if they do away with certain words, then we'll all stop thinking about it. We'll all stop thinking that way. Yeah. And I mean, yes, it's wrong, and as everybody would agree, to demonise all Muslims just because some Muslims are crazy. But by the same token, you can't not call it Islamic terrorism.
And I think it removes the responsibility within the Muslim community in this country. I mean, if we had sort of, I don't know, Christian terrorists or whatever from Uganda or whatever, you would expect Christian Ugandans in the country to take responsibility for people that are being radicalized within their communities. Yeah. I think if you just call it faith-based violence or whatever he wants to call it, you remove that responsibility. And I know it's not fair to sort of, I suppose, vindicate an entire group, but there is a responsibility there that they cannot run away from.
But also they are doing the terrorism in the name of their religion. Exactly. Whether they're doing that by mistake or whether it's wrong for them to do that. You know, the IRA, which you both probably far too young to remember the bad old days of the IRA, they used to blow up London regularly when I was at school. But they didn't do it in the name of Catholicism. They did it in the name of a united Ireland. It was nothing to do with religion. They happened to be Catholics, but they didn't say they were doing it in the name of God. They were doing it because they wanted to get the British out of Ulster.
Well, you look at someone like Quran Butt, who obviously was like one of the London Bridge attackers. You know, he was filmed unfurling an ISIS flag in Regent's Park. You know, pledged allegiance to the Caliphate. Clearly was a radical Islamist terrorist. Right. What do you want to call him? That is what. That's as a cut and dry as it can possibly be.
You can't ignore his connection to Islam, right?
Because he's brought a flag with him. No. Just in case you didn't know. Just in case you weren't absolutely certain. Yeah.
And also, I think this is the kind of nonsense that I think drives a wedge between people from different faiths and different communities, because they look at that and they say, well, you see, this is exactly why you know, I don't like Muslims, because this is what they try to do, which is also wrong. Yeah. But because of people like Neil Basu, that's what people who are kind of marginalised think. Because they think, well, why can't I call him an Islamic terrorist? If you're telling me words I can't use, you know, then I'm now against you. You know, dangerous stuff. Give us your final one.
Yes. So China's ambassador to the UK, Liu Xiaoming, I believe I've thoroughly mispronounced, but so he's like the human embodiment of rearranging the decking on the Titanic. This guy, confronted with just some absolutely horrendous, perfectly verified, obvious footage of what looks very much like a concentration camp. He's just going, you know, burying his head in the sand and saying, no, none of this is true, absolutely not. But it comes after as well some bizarre responses to China. So initially they did just flout international law, obviously with regard to Hong Kong, and then when we just kind of said, sorry chaps, would you mind just stopping that? Yeah? If you want a war with China, no, we don't want war with China. We're just saying, well, that's it now. We're going to bring it. No, just calm down. Can you just not do all those atrocities that you're doing? You know,
that you promised not to do.
Yeah, you signed. We've got the paper. Man. We've got, you know, and I just find it. This
is his performance on Andrew Miles.
It is,
right?
of course. Yeah. So you know, just deny. I just find it a very, very strange kind of setup, really, that you could do that. Does he go? What quantifies a good day for Mr. Xiaoming? Oh, I've just lied to everyone today. Well done, darling. That was fantastic.
You follow him on Twitter.
What was that, sorry?
Do you follow him on Twitter?
No.
No, he's fantastic.
Is he?
He's even better on Twitter.
But yeah, I mean, look, it is part of this kind of...
See, what I used to enjoy on Twitter was the Russian embassy Twitter
account.
That was always good. I mean, I haven't looked at it for a while, but I didn't know this guy was actually on Twitter.
Oh, yeah, no, he is.
So does he issue sort of denials all day?
I don't know. I had to mute him. He was funny while he lasted, but I had to mute him.
You know, here's some new fake pictures that the West is promoting as if they were really happening.
Yeah, but this is part of it. I mean, there is clearly a very serious point here, which is that China, it looks like, is engaging in enforced sterilisation of certain sectors of the Muslim community.
Well, it looks like genocide, doesn't it?
I mean, it probably is, isn't it? Yeah, like, I mean, if that's not genocide, I don't know what is. Yeah. But it's like the actual, you know, no political freedoms whatsoever. Just it's a general human rights cesspit, really. And they, you know, I do think that now is the time to be a bit a bit firmer, really.
I'm quite proud of Dominic Raab, actually, that he's taken this stance. I mean, I'm not a great fan of giving politicians too much praise, but I'm really glad that we've actually taken to one side all the money and just gone, look, forget it, you can't do this. You know, we're not going to stand for it. Yeah.
Unlike the EU, who of course just signed a bumper trade deal with Beijing. So cheers, guys.
Yeah, but they do that with their fingers crossed and their eyes shut, hoping for the best. You know. But I mean, well, exactly right. But I mean, that's the other thing about China. It reminded me of, again, you might not have remembered this guy. There was a guy called during the first Iraq War, Chemical Ali, who was this horrible guy who was the man in charge of all the sort of, you know, the nerve gas and all the horrible stuff that they did. But then there was this other guy who was this press spokesman who became known as Comical Ali because he was literally filmed standing on the rooftop denying that the Americans were anywhere near Baghdad. And as he was talking, the tanks were literally rolling in behind him with big American flags on them. And he was going, no, they're not here. No, absolutely not here. People are going, behind you. It's the US Army.
These Americans.
Yes,
they're
here. But it is, I mean, you wonder how long they can keep this up, the Chinese, though, because the worry, of course, for everybody is that they will not only have some kind of trade war with us, but they might start doing something else, which is even worse. You know, like we know that they've got cyber war capabilities. You know, of course we know that they've got, you know, military capabilities. I don't think it'll get to that, but it's a bit worrying, isn't it?
I mean, I don't think it's in China's interest to do any of that, to be perfectly honest. I think that's the reason why sanctions from Western countries work so well, is because we have the leverage, we have the upper hand. But I do think in terms of probably attacks, it'll probably be more underhanded, like interfering with elections, kind of trying to move along the lines of sort of soft power tactics, so trying to influence media. TikTok, for instance, a Chinese company. So, you know, these are probably the things that they will be seeking to influence.
They certainly seem to have had a success with TikTok, because everybody that I know that uses it appears to be an absolute moron. So I'm assuming it's some kind of brain freezing agent that they've got going through it. I keep getting people sending me things. Oh, this is me miming to. Why? Why are you sending me this? Why do you think I'd want to see it?
I don't even know what the website looks like.
I've only ever seen, like, literally, you know, sort of videos that people put out on either Twitter, because Twitter and Facebook's about all I do. I don't even really get Instagram. I'm too old. So TikTok, we've got no chance. But it's sort of people, you know, doing some kind of boomerang style, backwards and forwards, singing with stupid, you know, animal faces. I just don't get it at all.
I mean, if their ambition, which I suspect it is just to make a complete mockery of the West. I mean, we're doing it for them with TikTok.
Well,
Exactly. You know, let's just see what these Westerns will do now. If we make an app, they will mime to animal music. Yes, they will.
And all those underage girls on TikTok. My brother's like, oh, look at this girl. I'm like, no, I will not. I will not look at that 16-year-old girl on TikTok.
That's a bit worrying, isn't it?
Yeah,
that
it's really weird.
Yeah, very worrying indeed. I don't want to start talking about my 15-year-old son's Instagram account, because that's another one I don't want to look at at all. Ever. I'll leave that to his mother. What's your final final one?
This guy is a regular, and I feel bad, but he just. Prince Harry. It's Prince Harry.
He's got to be in it. I think he's been in it every week this year.
Every week, yeah. He's in all of my choices, and it's just because. It goes back to, it's literally like watching a public castration in slow motion. Honestly, it's like, what are you doing? And like, I have my relatives back home in Ghana, and they're like, what is this? What's going on with the men there? And I'm just like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
How?
I mean, this is a guy who could, in very odd circumstances, I admit, be King of England.
Exactly.
I mean, he could be.
Yeah. And then there's Meghan, and it's just, I don't even understand. I can't understand it, from the marriage to now to the whole I want privacy, so I moved to LA and couch surf in millionaires' homes.
And I'm going to do a video about once every 2 days, because that's how I hide from the public eye.
Exactly.
It's very weird behaviour, isn't it?
And I don't want attention, so I'm just going to publicise my life. I don't get it.
How long do you reckon it is before he just starts taking really long walks in the woods? Well, it's just had enough now. He's just crying in the shower. That's his hobby.
Well, I said, do you know, one of the things they did when they moved into this house, first of all, was they were worried about the paparazzi. It's like, well, that's where they came from. You know, Beverly Hills is where paparazzi was invented. You know, so there's a lot of them, and they put up this fence all around the house. And I actually said, that's not to keep them out, that's to keep him in. You know, he wants to escape. And I mean, any first chance he gets. Yeah. I said about 5 years, I think he'll be back. And he'll realise it'll be one of those, walks into the pub and sees all his mates and goes, should have listened to you. Yeah. You know, because we've all been there.
I mean, he has one video where, like, it looks like there was loads of comments on social media that she was holding his junk while he was talking, because he looked physically in pain.
He did.
And I was like, she's not holding it. It's like a brine-filled like jar or something.
Yeah, she's already removed it. Yeah, absolutely. This will be in my purse if you need it. Hillary Clinton used to say to Bill, But here's the thing. Also, there's been a survey just published today in which the British public have now completely turned against Harry, and you never thought that would have happened.
Never.
You know, something like 30% of the people now think he's good for the country, as opposed to about 80% before he met her. It's really quite shocking.
I mean, he's lucky to have Prince Andrew to fall back on, because you really can't get worse than that.
I mean, to be honest, that is. And of course, there are people who think that we all in this country are terribly racist, and they go, "Oh yeah, they're all beating up on Harry and Meghan." When actually, look at this guy over here, who gets an easier time. Actually, doesn't get an easier time, so that's not really true. But you know,
he's in the process of being removed from history. So I don't reckon.
Well, exactly. I mean, pretty soon you just won't hear. He just disappear. It'll be like one of those mysteries, you know, where whatever happened to. It'll be like Sheargar, you know, the racehorse that was never seen again, and Lord Lucan, and it'll be whatever happened to Prince Andrew. Oh, he went out one night. He was going to a bar in Soho. And he was never seen again. Yeah. You know.
I feel quite sorry for the Queen. Do you reckon there's at some point where she's just rung everyone and gone, "Stop it!
Right.
Just all of you, just stop it! This is nuts!"
You would think so, wouldn't you? I mean, she really has had a rough old time in the last sort of 50 years. I mean, you'd have to say, going all the way back to Diana. Because again, you know, when Diana and Andrew's wife, Fergie, were around, I mean, that was a nightmare. You know, the old toe-sucking escapade and all that. I mean, she was awful. Absolutely horrendous. I remember they went to Ascot once and were poking people with umbrellas. And just drinking and getting drunk, and this was when they were.
She had a personality.
She did have a personality. She did. I suppose that's true, and everybody kind of laughed along with it. Yeah. But you know, the Queen. This is why the Queen is even more remarkable than any of us really know. And even Philip. I mean, you know, he turned up at the wedding looking great. You know, this is a guy who, him and Keith Richards, going to be the only people alive. You know, after World War III, they'll just come crawling out the woodwork. You know, what happened? Is everything all right? Yeah, what happened? You know,
bang. Is everything all right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I'm down to my final one, and now this is very personal, so forgive me for my moment of self-indulgence. After we filmed this last week, I went to lunch with Emily Carver and Jerry Hayes, and we went across the Borough Market, where we had a very lively session at the tapas bar. And, you know, it was all very nice. We were sitting out on the street, because in these times of social distancing, it's a lovely place, you know, you can always sit outside, but it's right on a street corner by the tube station, where buses go backwards and forwards. There's ambulances heading over to Guy's. You know, there's a lot of noise going on. Anyway, this group of what can only be described as, you know, tech entrepreneurs is what I'm going to call them. All with beards, sat next to the table to us, right? And one particular guy with a very scraggly-looking beard, he looked like something out of Rumpelstiltskin or something, comes wandering over and says, "Would you mind not shouting, please?" To which Jerry, who's a very well-behaved sort of barrister, former Tory MP, said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And I just looked up at this guy, I said, "I beg your pardon? You know, why don't you get lost?" Or words to that effect. And just told him to go and sit down and mind his own business. Because one, we weren't shouting. Two, it was an open public place. And three, it was outside on a street corner, which was very noisy traffic going backwards and forwards. Anyway, this guy then proceeded to just try and carry on. I then just got louder and louder and louder, because I just thought and I just started abusing him, you know, loudly. And then as I got up to, I took a picture of it, put it out on Twitter, and just explained what had happened. And of course, it turned into this massive, as these things do, social media sort of bonfire, thousands of likes, thousands of comments. But what a ridiculous world that we now live in, where people actually think that they can go up to strangers who are having a quite convivial lunch in a very public place, which is very noisy, and ask them not to say anything too loudly.
He's like Karen the eunuch, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. But this is the society we've sort of created. You know, we've created this crazy busybody-like society, the kind of people that tell you to wear a mask if you're not wearing one, or tell you to take your mask off if you are wearing one.
Riding a bike or something.
Yeah.
You know, it's a massive sense of entitlement, isn't it? Yeah. Where do you get off doing that kind of thing? Like, someone would have to be behaving really badly before I went up and said, "Look, mate, sorry about this."
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Sorry, you're providing me with a minor inconvenience. Everything isn't as absolutely perfect as I would want. Therefore,
we both
you need to
agreed
change.
at the time, Jerry and I, that one of the things that he probably didn't like was the fact that we were talking about politics, and we probably weren't saying the kinds of things that he wanted to hear. Yeah. And it was probably more about that than it was about anything else, you know. But I was really quite flabbergasted that somebody would have the gall. Because I wouldn't. I mean, if you're sitting outside in a street, right, it's quite noisy. It's a bit like asking guy... In London, it's like asking a bloke at a football match, would you mind not cheering?
Yeah.
You know?
It's like the people who buy a house next to a pub, then campaign for the pub to reduce its opening hours. Or just live somewhere else. You know?
Like all those people in the flight path of Heathrow. Yeah. You know, too many planes. Well, you live near an airport. You know, that tends to happen, for God's sake. Right, anyway, so Esther, you've never done this before, so what we do now is we've got all of our 3 nominations. So what we now do is we try and pare them all down to the 3 out of 9, right? So I'm going to ask you, Patrick, to pick your favourite one of Esther's.
Okay, hit me with the three again.
So your three were?
The Public Court of Appeal,
Yes.
Prince Harry and Keir Starmer.
I'm going to go the Court of Appeal.
Court of Appeal's a good one.
Yeah, that is mega.
Yeah.
Also, it is very current, isn't it? Because with people like, I mean, Keir Starmer's on it a lot.
Yeah,
as is
Prince
Harry. In fact, between them, they've definitely been on every week since the beginning of time. You know.
Could you imagine?
I know. So Court of Appeal. So why don't you pick your favourite one of mine? Mine are Prince Andrew, Neil Basu, and the red-bearded bloke.
Ah, gosh, Rumpelstiltskin is a
She'll
difficult
forever
one.
be known as Redbeard.
Yeah. I don't know. I think Prince Andrew has to take it.
I think he's a good
Yeah,
one.
you just cannot justify that.
No. So Prince Andrew, because also we may have to put him in for the last time before he gets airbrushed out of history altogether. You know. All right. So I now have to pick one of yours.
Yeah, so I went China's ambassador to the UK, Jofra Archer, and the director of Public Health England.
See, those are all great. Those are all
Public
really
Health has
good.
to take it. I mean, how can you fake coronavirus deaths?
Well, there's that, but then the Chinese ambassador's pretty good too.
Yeah,
though.
he's pretty good.
I
His
mean-
Twitter's fantastic.
I mean, he's
different
literally.
level anyway.
I think it's got to be Chinese because I mean, also a Public Health England guy. If he hasn't quit yet, he's never going to quit. Which means we'll be able to have another go at him. I'm pretty sure. But, you know, when we find out something else has gone wrong.
Yeah.
You know, because nothing's actually gone right for
yeah,
Public
like
Health.
Roadkill died from coronavirus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they've been counting all the dead dogs as well. You know, right. So that puts us down to Prince Andrew, the Court of Appeal, and the Chinese ambassador. So we can either choose who we want in 1, 2, 3 order, or we can go the 3, 2, 1 order, or we can throw one out.
Oh.
What do you think? Who do you think? Who would you suggest is
Still
your
Prince
winner
Andrew.
out of that?
It's just,
you still think Prince
I
Andrew?
still think Prince Andrew. He's done a lot
Number
of
one.
damage. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I am going to stick with the Chinese ambassador just purely because it's not the last we've seen of him whatsoever.
Oh, definitely,
And I'm just intrigued to see, you know, from the people that brought you Tiananmen Square, there's yet more lies.
That's
Like,
true,
You can trust us, guys.
Yeah, yeah.
Come on, it's all
Yeah.
it's
Actually,
absolutely
I think that might swing it for me. Actually,
Yeah.
why don't we make Prince Andrew number 2?
Number 2, definitely.
We'll
yeah.
go with the Chinese ambassador number 1. What's his name again?
It is. Get this right. It is.
You wanna get that right,
Yeah,
if you say
I've got to
Kung
get this
Fu like I
right.
do.
So it's Liu Xiaoming. Is
Liu
the way I'm
Xiaoming.
certainly
Okay, so I'm going to
pronouncing
say that Liu Xiaoming. So in number 3, we've got the Court of Appeal. Number 2, we've got Prince Andrew. So the winner this week of Plank of the Week, the Chinese ambassador to the United Kingdom, Liu Xiaoming. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I want to say a big thank you to Patrick Christys and Esther Krakue for joining me this week. Thank you very much, guys, for coming in. Don't forget, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You'll get all the other great videos that we put out from Talk Radio TV, as well as Plank of the Week. And if you've got any nominations you want us to know about, just tack them on at the bottom in the comments section.